How we doing, everybody? Good? Good to see you.
Ryan, I'm curious, just first off, we've asked you a lot of overarching questions throughout the offseason, but I'm curious, as you've gone through fall camp and now going into the season, what are you confident that this offense is going to do really well?
I think that they're going to be able to execute early. I think they're comfortable and probably a little further ahead than I thought they'd be as far as just base downs, everything that we expect as far as how to control the ball and things like that. I mean, you're pretty sideline mechanics, all that stuff. I've been, happy. I know that's boring, but I've been happy with how they've been able to progress just on the simple stuff.
What did Taj Davis do as well to earn a starting spot?
Yeah, Taj, it's really a 1A, 1B. I mean, him and JP are going to play a ton. Taj went up and really, I thought he upped his stock with how his, is attacking the football the last 10 days of fall camp. I mean, when the ball was in the air, we felt really confident that Taj was going to come down with it. And JP really the same, honestly. Those guys, you're going to see a ton of those guys.
Taj starting at wide receiver, I always say sometimes some positions it doesn't matter who the starter is because you're rotating in packages. Is that pretty much the deal where the starter doesn't really matter?
Oh, correct. I mean, like I said, JP or Taj, I mean, they're both starters in my mind. They're going to play a ton at Z. And so, yeah, it's not there's plays that one guy does a little bit better than the other guy, and we can personnel those and package those to suit that a little bit for each guy. But in the case of those two guys, they're honestly both starters. I don't see really any difference at this point for either one of them.
Same at running back?
No, running back's Wayne. Wayne's definitely the starter. He's solidified himself as starting tailback, and I think CD and Will, you'll see a ton of both those guys as well.
Did you expect Wayne to come in and just take it?
Yes.
Yeah. From looking at film and all that?
Film and that might be hopeful in that statement, just in the sense that we had a belief in the mindset that he would bring and the type of execution to be able to provide. And just, he might be one of the most mature guys on our football team. And so it means a lot to him. He's on his last season. He's been through all the years of being a younger player and how to get on the field and mistakes and how to do it right. And so we just, I felt really strong that he'd be able to come in and take that. Now, part of that too is that we hadn't, been able to see CD or Rich, and some of the older guys that have been here. So felt strong that Wayne was healthy and had a good season and was a guy that had been productive in multiple systems and that he was going to be able to do that.
What have you seen from Will Nixon so far to put him behind Talibop on the depth chart?
He is very multiple, which is what we expect out of our tailbacks. Catches really well out of the backfield. I think I mentioned this during camp at one point, but, Will does not look like a receiver trying to play running back, which in some ways, Will was a very accomplished running back in high school, both, statistically and when you watch his film. So we felt really confident in that he would be able to be a true tailback. Now in Nebraska, I know they had him more as a wideout, but we felt like that hybrid of a player would fit us perfectly. And he's done that. He's lived up to those expectations. And, then it really becomes a question of, is he going to be able to be a not just adequate, but a solid, pass blocker, because we ask our backs to do all three phases. And he's done a great job with that. So he's embraced that and gotten way better at that. I think he's made it into something that he's, proud of. And his route running ability is fantastic out of the backfield.
What kind of split do you see between Nixon and Talibop going into freshman?
I think, all three of those guys I mentioned, they'll get equal time. I think it'll be, you always run into the situation with tailbacks if somebody gets a hot hand and they're breaking a lot of tackles and you just keep feeding them the ball. At the same time, it's a long season and we got to make sure we take care of those guys.
Right, speaking of blocking, it's not often where you see a younger player supplant a multi-year starter, but it looks like that's what happened at right tackle. What did you like about what Roger did?
Roger, I think, is one of the more athletic kids we have up front. Athleticism and aggressiveness, are two of Roger's better attributes. Roger is continually getting better at, I really thought early in camp, I thought he had a long ways to go. Just almost would play irresponsibly at times with his technique and out of control. And, I remember having a conversation with him early in camp, and Coach Huff, just if he wasn't able to, get that reeled in, there'd be no reason for him to be out there. So I think he took that seriously, and there's been a lot of competition out there. And I think guys like, Mateo is a guy I think is wildly talented, and I think at some point you're going to end up seeing him too, because he's a really good player.
On that note with the O-line, obviously it's kind of a weird week where Jackson's not able to be involved, and you got Troy going to left tackle and Kalepo. How much confidence do you have in that group to be able to be cohesive and execute? They've
been together quite a bit now. So when you think about spring ball collectively and even fall camp now, I got a lot of confidence that, they're on the same page. We've been able to get really a lot of reps in a lot of different formats as far as who's in there at what positions. So that part for us has been a huge strength, that we've been able to, get Troy inside reps, outside reps, get Kalepo, repped on the inside and outside, Julius Bilo on the left side, and as well as, the right side with Mateo being a kind of plug and play guy in a lot of different spots to help us out. And Corey Luciano has played everything from center to right guard to right tackle as well. So those guys have done a really good job, I'd say, the last week and a half, starting to gel, and which is obviously what you want in that last week of fall camp.
What's your expectation for the kind of season that Michael can have at quarterback, coming from Indiana and kind of the ups and downs and injuries and stuff there, and starting over here?
It's high. I think our expectations and what we put out there for what the quarterback position in general needs to be are high standards, period, regardless of who the starter is. And luckily for Mike, he's been through that, and understands what those expectations look like. And really, I think it's more about managing that with him, because he knows what the potential is of having a good season in this offense, and how much it correlates with the quarterback position, and we will ebb and flow with how that guy's doing. And we'll obviously make adjustments to be able to make up for or accentuate as he plays better or worse, or whoever's in there. And that's always been the expectation. But for him, I think Mike is one of his best attributes, is he is such a cool customer. He's been down through it, the good and the bad, and had some really high notes, and, toughed out and been a warrior through some really tough injuries in his life. And that's one of the things that I admire most about Mike, is he's got a warrior mentality. And I think that, when he's able to come out there and show you that he can make the plays and be excited, but still have, a calm demeanor, that's, I think, what makes a good quarterback.
Right, for those that have never seen him play, and there's going to be some Husky fans on Saturday that have never seen Michael Penix play snap. How would you describe him as an athlete? Is he a Tom Brady? Is he a Peyton Manning? Is he a Michael Vick? Where does he kind of fall in line on?
He's none of those. He's none of those in the meaning that he's not Michael Vick with how he runs, and he's definitely not a statue back there. I think he's a very, very capable runner. He's an outstanding athlete. If you saw him on the basketball court, he'd go out there and stand under the rim and, dunk it behind his head with no problem. He's very explosive. I think he's more sudden than people realize. But what I've always liked about Mike, even when he was playing for Coach DeBoer at Indiana, is he's a true quarterback. He's not going to see pressure and think, how do I get out of here and run? He's going to think about how he can accomplish the play and be a threat with his arm. So he is a pure thrower in that sense, but he's also a ball player. He will get out of there and he'll have the guts to make the play he has to.
You mentioned when he got here, taking a really close look at his injury history and how best to sort of manage that type of thing going forward. Do you feel good about where you're at there and kind of how he's looked that way?
Yeah, I think Mike's done a great job of trying to be proactive, and ultimately that's what it is the preservation of the season for him, is trying to build himself into something that he hasn't been in a long time, feeling really strong and whole and not nursing anything going into game one. And that's where he's at. He's as strong as he's been in years, and I think probably our strength staff and training staff is probably tired of hearing from me. I'll send them videos and articles and, hey, I've seen this for shoulder and spine stability. What do we have to do to get this? I mean, it's never ending, and that's really what I want for those guys, all of them, not just Mike, but finding ways to make them, as durable as possible. And he's really chased that. He's done a nice job.
Do you script opening a couple of series or go by feel? And then with Michael, how much discretion does he have on, check downs, at the line of scrimmage and changing plays?
I do have an opening series. They're just openers. It's not necessarily in order. There's a couple plays that I like to get us started and rolling, and once we're off and running, then it's based off of, how we feel moving forward. And then for Mike, I think he'll continue to grow in that role, but he's already pretty diverse in that as far as being able to check plays, and we'll continue to build off that. But there are plays in there that he'll have to make a decision, A or B, and then there's some plays where I won't put that on his plate and I'll do it myself.
With that QB room, in the depth chart, Dylan and Sam are listed as or number twos. Are they truly co-number twos, or how do you kind of treat that situation?
Yeah, going into a game, it would not be an or situation. I would never put a guy in that place. So going into a game week, I'll clearly establish who the two is so that the guys know moving forward, hey, this is my role. And then there's no question marks either with the reps, because what you don't want is a guy to get out to practice and he's like, I thought I was the two, and so on. So the lion's share of the two reps have been Dylan's, and he is the two going into the game. Sam has also been repping, and will be expected to know the offense in its entirety. But yeah, I think you have to. You got to lay that out. Otherwise, the guys won't know what the expectation is.
Ryan, as a play caller, just a game planner, do you like to tailor what you do around the strength of like the starter, or do you like to generally know, because you just never know who might end up being in the game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that you have to tailor it around, the offense as an entirety. So there's going to be things that you go into the game knowing that Mike does really well. And I don't feel like there's anything, if Dylan had to come in for a series, that it's like, well, he can't not do this. I think the major thing is the obvious part is the right and left-handed piece. There's some ball handling things and things like that you have to take into consideration for both guys and for the offense to make sure it works both ways. So it's more that, honestly, than anything. The rest of the stuff, I don't think there's any, plays that I would never call this unless Mike was in the game.
And following up on the right-left piece, does your offensive line change at all because of that?
No, we haven't. Those are discussions. I think if you have more flexibility, down the road, you can talk about those things. But we haven't adjusted at all. Nope.
Ryan, are you calling plays from the booth upstairs?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Talk about why some good guys like doing it from the sideline. Why do you prefer to be upstairs?
Yeah, I've done it before in my career from the sideline, and I guess just my personality, I know what it feels like and the thought processes you have to go through as a play caller, and all those decisions that were on the call sheet were made in a sterile environment, quiet, decisive, and that's how you want to make that. And there's still going to be emotions, and I still get excited and stuff like that up in the box, but removing yourself from what's going on down there, I think is wise, in my opinion, offensively, where, you're in an environment where you can control, because even the coaches on the sideline, you guys have all seen Coach Shepard at practice, we're going to have to keep everything, moving forward, and that's what you want. You want those guys to be able to bring energy, and you be able to bring the calm, decisive decision-making to the whole system.
Have you had a moment to reflect? You've had a really long career, and now you're at the Power 5 level. Have you had a chance to think about that it's going to unfold here on Saturday?
No, we'll check that out after the season. But no, I think it's amazing to me, honestly, when you get to a different level, whether it's Division II to FBS or 1AA to mid-major, whatever it is. I think when you get into the work, it's amazing to me how like it is. You still have seasons, and you have part of the season that you have to get through, and a preparation process that you got to go through, and then every time you get to an off season, you think of another way you can make that process better, and hey, I've seen this could be better, let's refine that. And it's just a constant process that, doesn't really necessarily change. I think, in my eyes, the biggest difference or the obvious difference is the recruitment process and the resources and the, attention to each one of those guys, I think is a little bit different. That'd be the main thing, but the X's and O's and the ability to adjust to that is the biggest thing.
I asked you that because on the video that they released that was pretty good yesterday, I think Morrell said, we've had the system and we've thought about it. We've thought about taking it up to that next level. And that's why I asked you that question.
Yeah. Yep.
Ryan, what kind of leader is Michael?
Mike is his own kind of man, and what I mean by that is he's reserved, and he's the kind of guy that I think where Mike is at his best is pulling a guy aside one-on-one, and he's able to just relate to and talk to his teammates. The guys will see some fire from him at times, but he's a pretty reserved kid, and I think that the way he leads is he loves interaction, one-on-one, small groups, things like that. And then when he has to step up and be the leader in front of the guys, everybody's listening because it's not something he does, every second of the day. So the guys, when Mike steps in front of the group, I think they see that he's, ready to go. And I think the other piece as far as Mike being a leader that guys relate to is they listen because they know Mike's story. They know the experience, the big games he's played in, the things he's had to overcome, the type of preparation that it takes to put into a football season. So I think Mike brings a lot of experience, and the guys see that and they feel that, and he's just a really genuine guy. That's what I've always liked about Mike is just, he's the same guy every day, and the guys know what to expect, and he knows the things he's continuing to work on and get better at, but he's consistent.
Ryan, how much would you, I guess what I'm trying to ask you, if you think of yourself as an innovator offensively, there's some coordinators, you watch them call plays and you see stuff you never seen before that they come up with, and it's sometimes a hybrid. We're going to see stuff out of you that we've never seen before? I mean, would you call yourself an innovator offensively?
I think every play caller in some ways is an innovator, and I think to ask your question without dodging it too much, I think you have to be if you want to be great. And I think about Nick Saban, and I think that's one of the things that Saban has done such a great job of over the years is there's things, personality-wise you see with Coach Saban that are not, they're immovable. But when you watch schematically what he does offensively, I realize he's not the coordinator, but he continues to move with the game. And he knows as a defensive person, you got to stay one step ahead of these guys. They're going to adjust, and this was really hot last year, and you're going to have to make an adjustment to make that better. And I think that's one of the things, I tip my hat to him is, some guys, they get stuck, and this is what we're going to do, and that's all we're going to do, and they can't move with the game. And he's always been able to do that. So I think that, anybody that's, worth their salt has to, otherwise, if you don't give them a different look or a different picture defensively, it just looks the same, and their ability to react and defend that play is just going to be a disadvantage to you.
Is there an obvious take the top off a defense receiver on this team that?
Yes. Rome.
Okay.
Yep.
Clear-cut number one guy in that regard.
Yeah. Yep. I think Jalen McMillan can do the same thing at any point, but Rome is certainly that guy.
Ryan, I was curious, looking at connections between Coach Lewis and Coach DeBoer, it looks like it goes back maybe even a decade. How far back, when you look at those types of things, to see what the other side might be doing in terms of innovating and things like that, how far back will you go?
Oh, as far back as necessary. For us this year defensively, they obviously have a new defensive coordinator who was at Northern Iowa since, I believe, 2007. So there was quite a bit of information there where he was at one place with a defensive head coach and, proved to be a pretty multiple guy that would, make adjustments and be different from week to week so that, we have to stay on our toes. So I think, when you're looking at a situation like this, you're going to have to confirm some things, and so you got to go back a year, you got to go back 2 years. I can remember playing Todd Graham when he was at Hawaii for the first time in 3 years and hadn't coached, and you're trying to piece it all together. And so sometimes the piece of the puzzle isn't very hard. It's been there for a while, and sometimes you got to really think okay, who are the assistant coaches that are coming in with this defensive coordinator? for Kent State. Their D-line coach is still there, their linebacker coach. They bring in a new corners coach and a new coordinator. So how does that all mesh together, right? So you have to do a little bit of investigative work, and if you don't like what you see, you got to keep digging until you find what you want.
This might be a difficult question to answer, but historically speaking, I know you have to do that kind of due diligence, but I'm curious as to how successful do you feel like that due diligence has paid off, especially in a week 1 game?
Well, I think it always pays off. I think that there's going to be things that you confirm and you're going to see right away in the first quarter. And just like any good coach, there's going to be stuff that we've never seen. They're going to have a look or a coverage scheme or a pressure that we didn't rep one time because it's a new look for them. And you just have to have confidence in your system that you have the ability to adjust, knowing the base structure or what they're trying to do or how they're trying to influence you.
All right, that's it for Coach Grubb. Thank you very much, Coach. Coach Morrell,
thank you.
Go. Good luck. Hey, Coach.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, now we're Coach Morrell, please.
You got rid of the beard.
I did. You understand beard problems. Barbecue sauce becomes a problem, so. Actually, it was. So we actually had a player barbecue the other night at Coach Juice's house, and I dumped a bunch of barbecue sauce in it and couldn't handle it anymore. So you ever had a beard, you know what the issues are. So honey, mustard, mayonnaise, at some point all that stuff becomes an issue.
So is Uluwale ready to go?
Yeah, you know, he's got a big week ahead of him. We feel pretty strongly he's on track, and you know, we got to make sure we're, you know, being smart, you know, in terms of how and when we're bringing him back, but he's certainly working back into things now.
With Elijah Jackson and Dyson McCutcheon listed as or on the roster, what kind of progression have you seen from Dyson McCutcheon specifically this fall to kind of rise up the depth charts?
Yeah, well, you know, I think the thing about Dyson coming in as a young player, you know, there's such a big learning curve, I think, for a lot of young guys, and especially when they haven't been on the field at all, a new system or not a new system, and just adapting to the game speed. And I think the true benefit of what we get to do every day is we get to face some really top level receivers. And, you know, what you look at is, you know, are you willing and able to compete, you know, with the top guys that our offense throws at us every day? And if you are on a regular basis, it's always a positive sign.
Well, a guy like Dyson, I know that the previous staff recruited him to be a nickel, to play in the same style as some of the guys that had come before him. Is it just an interesting situation where he's playing corner now, but maybe he thought he was coming in for a different spot?
Well, you know, we ask our guys to be versatile. I mean, I think that's the net benefit. When you have guys that can flip back between, you know, a nickel spot, corner, field safety, you've got to have some, you know, diversity and the ability of guys to play multiple positions, especially when you get into sub-packaging. And so I think there's several guys in our back half that can play multiple positions for us, and I think you'll see that throughout the course of the season.
I was curious how close Devon Banks was to cracking them.
Yeah, no, D Banks is doing great. You know, I think obviously showing up, still making a lot of plays, being very aggressive, playing with speed and tempo, and there's no doubt that we got confidence in him as well as a young player.
What do you think this defense will be really good at from the opener?
Just attacking. I mean, I think that's been our entire focus the entire time. And like I said, again, credit to our offense. Our offense challenges us in a lot of different ways from a formational standpoint and some of their actions and plays that they run. And so, you know, we've asked our guys to be able to be assignment sound while being aggressive. And, you know, fortunately, we've been able to see a ton of pictures here leading up to the first game. So, you know, number one thing is we got to be playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and I feel like we got some guys up front that can definitely do that.
Chuck, I'm curious, you've been asked like a bunch of times this fall camp about run defense, and for good reason considering what happened last season, but what does make Kent State so productive as a run offense, and what do you see that gives you guys challenges?
Creativity. You know, I think that's the number one thing that pops off the page. You talk about an offensive staff that's been together for a while, had a lot of success statistically. You know, look at their national rankings in the run game, and it's really impressive. And, I think the thing that they do a great job of is they keep everybody involved, and the quarterback's always going to be a threat. They always have an RPO going on with a quarterback run, with, gap schemes and zone schemes, and, it's incredibly creative and high-level run game stuff. And so I think the challenge is, for our guys up front, you've got to be super assignment sound. It just takes you back to thinking all the way back in the day when veer option used to be the big thing. I mean, everybody's got a job to do on every play, and literally a small mistake can turn into a big play. And so we really challenge our guys leading up to this game that everybody's got to make sure they're taking care of their job.
You released a depth chart today. I know you're going to rotate guys in. Who are some guys not listed as starters that you can expect to see quite a bit of?
Well, you look at our linebacking core, I think, we feel really good about the two deep in there. Chris Mole is a guy that there's no doubt he's made a lot of progress. He's still got, a little ways to go here yet, but I think, from a packaging standpoint, you'll see him on the field. Feel good about Carson Bruner stepping on the field at any time. Between, our defensive ends, we feel really good with our defensive end crew. You look at, between Trice and ZTF and Sav Smalls has had a good camp, and Jeremiah Martin. So, I really feel like there's several positions where, and especially in the face of what we're going up against this first week, I mean, this is a team that's got gunning to run 100 plays. And so whether you're 1A or 1B, really in my mind is irrelevant, because we need production out of everybody that steps on the field.
Coach, Scott Huff said that the edge play during camp was the best he had seen since he'd been here. Do you feel that they are, because you're playing against each other, so I mean, do you feel like they've elevated their play?
There's no doubt. I think Coach Schmidt's done a fantastic job with those guys, and there's some inherent talent there that's there, and some work ethic level. I look at guys. You always think about guys that are, man, they never leave the building. I think Braylon Trice, I don't know if he ever goes home. That's how invested some of these guys are, and so it's not a shock when their production levels really high, and I think it's been fun to see the challenge between our O-line and D-line on a daily basis. And, like I said, with all of our positions, iron sharpens iron. And the same way that the receivers challenge the DBs, I think D-line and O-line, the competition level there every day, guys got a lot of pride. They're not going to want to let the guy on the other side get the best of them. And I think that's a net benefit to us.
So you talk about the type of offense Kent State runs, and then you look at a guy like Dominique Camp. Philosophically wise, is this maybe the reason why you went Husky and went for a more hybrid safety linebacker type to play close and to maybe either spy the quarterback or get after an active guy like that?
Yeah, well, I think Dom's very unique. I mean, I think he's got an incredible skill set. You're talking about one of the strongest and fastest guys on the team, and he's sitting there weighing, 225 pounds. And so, I think it's a great weapon for us in terms of game planning, where we can move him around and put him in multiple spots, have him be physical off the edge, but still, walk out and cover up on slot receivers. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that have the ability to do both of those things. And so I think we're fortunate to have his skill set right now, and super high confidence in him being an impact player on Saturday.
Is it fair to assume Cam Bright's making the checks, lining guys up, and just running the
out? I think, Cam, very veteran, incredibly veteran player. Kind of working through in the spring, and it's really impressive to me to see that veteran of a guy make as big a jump as he made during fall camp. I think sometimes when you think guys are getting into their 4th, 5th, 6th seasons, they kind of are what they are, but his growth rate here through I think the second part of fall camp has been fantastic. I mean, super assignment sound, being explosive, making plays, running sideline to sideline. There's no doubt he's going to make plays when it comes to Saturday.
How hard is it making those adjustments out there that he's expected to?
I think we challenge our linebackers all the time. I mean, they've got to run. I mean, they've got to run the front and make sure we're on point. And there's certain looks that we want to get into based off of certain pictures. But we also, I think it's our job schematically as coaches to make sure we don't overcomplicate it, because at the end of the day, we got to let guys like him play fast. And I think we've certainly done that a little bit, but also just the trust in him and how he's developed here over the course of fall camp. I mean, there's no doubt that he's going to get us in the right spots.
Chuck, you haven't coached Nathan Turner until now, but what have you noticed from a progress perspective from the player he was the last couple of years versus the guy he is now?
Yeah, and I think I've probably mentioned this before. We've really focused on taking every young man that when we stepped in here in the spring, and And I really set everything else aside. I don't, the history and everything behind him, he has shown me nothing but passion for the game, incredible aptitude to learn and process information, has been on the field hasn't missed a single second of any practice, anything we've done. Another guy never leaves the building, I think, so my confidence level in him right now is extremely high. I mean, I really think he's going to be a veteran savvy player. He runs the show from the back half. He's talking through, linebackers, corners, the nickel. I mean, he's talking through everybody and making sure everybody's on the right page. And I just saw this, the other day in practice. I mean, he's calling out plays as guys are seeing formations and Kent State plays for the very first time. He's calling them out the first time. So that's the level of detail that he's putting into his game right now by studying and prepping and making sure he's ready to go on a daily basis.
Alex Cook taught us that he's learning to use his body, which I guess to me means he's playing physical, right? Is that what that means to you? Is he playing a physical?
Yeah, he's incredibly physical. I mean, he is, there's guys that you talk about in the secondary. One of the questions you always talk about in recruiting is, do they see contact? Are they willing to run down there and put their face on something? And, AC is a guy that will run to the ball and bring some thunder with it. And so, I think it's at times controlling the aggression. You got to be smart as a safety. I mean, our safeties are going to be highly, highly involved in stopping run game, obviously. But, we got to also make sure that we keep it in check a little bit too. But, there's another guy that I just pulled him on the sideline the other day and said, man, I can't believe you. You're sixth year. And the jump for him between spring and right now, he's not even the same guy to me. I mean, he's made a lot of progress. And to see a sixth-year guy make progress like that, man, it's awesome.
You mentioned the linebacker two deeps, and you actually got five guys in those two deeps. And Daniel Hanguli, what has he done to take strides, and kind of where do you sort of see where he's at?
Yeah, Daniel's been more consistent. I think that's always kind of been an issue in terms of schematic consistency for him. He's a very aggressive player, extremely aggressive, which is great, and you love that defensively. But also we got to get guys going in the right direction. I think so. The biggest jump for Daniel has been his consistency here during fall camp. Less. Mental errors or missed assignments, and that's certainly elevated his position standing in the room.
What did Vince Young do to get on the depth chart and kind of raise his profile in camp?
Yeah, I think it's just, it's time. I think it's time for him. And first of all, he's got great range, great athleticism. And for a young player, he's got excellent football IQ. And so, there's a lot of confidence, right now that, although he's going to have to take his first snaps here at some point. So I think as a position coach, you're always a little nervous the first time, and this is your whole coaching career. The first time a guy steps on the field, you got a little bit of nerves for him because you want him to, not try to do too much, let the game come to him. But, Vince has had a really strong, consistent camp, and I feel great about all the safeties. I think Cam Williams had a strong second half of camp here too. I treat him just like a starter, just like Asa and AC, and so there's a lot of confidence in those guys.
Back. Is he 100%? Is he on a pitch count?
Yeah, with this week will kind of determine where things end up with him.
Chuck, you have Martin at one side as an edge rusher and ZTF sharing the job, at least on paper, with Trice. Are those guys interchangeable on each side? Are there different responsibilities? And is Martin ahead of the other two guys?
Well, no, I think it is that, to answer your question, they can be interchangeable, but there's specifically a role that they have to play. I mean, I think sometimes you get up going against tempo in certain formations, they're able to do either job, but, there's certainly a tone that we want to set to the field side. That's where Jeremiah's playing most of the time right now, and he is a physical son of a gun. I mean, he'll come out and be hyper aggressive and set the edge. But also, there's no doubt that we're going to have times where Trice and ZTF are going to be on the field together. We got a lot of different sub packaging combinations where there'll be different combinations of those guys on the field.
Do you game plan rotations, or do you play it by feel, and when you go to your second guy?
You have to come in. I think you always come in with game plan rotations on total number of snaps, and especially walking into the game that we're talking about again with an offense that's literally trying to snap the ball with 22, 23 seconds left on the clock. And so we'll game plan rotations early on. I think, you say, hey, this guy's going to take the third series, this guy's going to take the fourth series, and then you get a feel for how guys are producing on the field, and then after that point, then things kind of settle in.
Chuck, during your Fresno days, is there an offense you guys may have faced that was similar in terms of speed?
In terms of how fast they're playing?
Yeah.
You know, probably not to that degree. The thing I think, you know, again, I'm giving our offense a lot of credit here, but our offense plays fast, man. So we get that stuff every day in camp, and I think that does as good a job as preparing us as anything is, you know, Coach DeBoer's philosophy, Coach Grubb's philosophy. We're going out every day in practice. We're running a lot of plays, and guys got to be prepared.
What are the ones that you can tell them to earn the starting job next game, right?
Just consistency. And then I think the second piece that he's really grown in is leadership. You know, there's no way that you can be a Mike linebacker and not be a vocal guy, not point everybody in the right direction, not make sure everybody's on top of their job. And I think his growth as a leader has been as important as his growth as a player. And I think he's been fantastic here during camp.
Chuck, I don't know if anybody's going to ask this yet, but what's it like working for Kalen? Is he a yeller? Or is he kind of stare you down and get the
he's a hard ass. He's sitting back there, so no, you know, Kalen's demeanor, it's, you know, the thing you can appreciate as an assistant coach, and I think that's why you find a lot of the guys that are here working for Kalen, is just the consistent approach and demeanor that he has. Guys want to work for him. And I think when you feel that sense of responsibility to the head coach, that's going to make you want to make sure you're doing your damnedest every single day you walk in the building. And I think that's the level of respect that, you know, a lot of this coaching staff has for him.
All right. All good for Coach Morrell. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Board is in the back.
Yep.
Coach, you want to open up or you want to go right to questions?
Yeah, I can open up. Be short here, but I know you guys have heard a lot from the coordinators already. I think it's good to hear from them. You can hear more in depth in regards to the specific questions you have, but finally game week, and feels good. Feels good. I think we're in a really good place mentally, in particular, health-wise too. You know, really all the starters that you see listed, I mean, they're in a good place body-wise, and they're ready to go lay it out there. You hear us and the things that we know we got to be ready for with probably the biggest thing would be the tempo, you know, and the run game that Kent State has, and you know, adjusting to a new coordinator on defense. Although we have film and everything from his previous stop, you know, we got to be ready for some new things there. So you know, got Mondays are an off day for us, and so that's typical every week. And so we'll go a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you know, in practice, and a Friday will be a run through is what we call it. We call it a run through, so it's not physical. We're just out there in t-shirt and shorts. It's a fast-paced walkthrough and going through situations, and we have a mock game, especially in regards to the special teams that we go through to make sure all the different units know the depth chart, and you know, we'll roll through that. So that's what the week looks like. So, questions?
What are some of the biggest things that you guys do over the course of the season to make sure your guys are staying healthy?
Yeah, I think that's something I think our guys have really appreciated. I mean, there's so many things. You guys that have been out to practice, you see the ice baths, you know, and we won't do it to the same way once the season starts. We have, you know, ice baths also inside here. And, you know, what happens is guys get into class schedules. You know, we're a morning practice team, and so they'll come in throughout the day after class, between classes, and do the same things as far as recovery, but it won't all be out there. And I understand the first few weeks here we don't have games, but just some logistical things and stuff like that come into play. That's a big deal. The guys have really bought into that and believe in it. Their bodies feel better. There's some things that our strength and conditioning staff does before practices. Yesterday, we spent about 20 to 25 minutes. Ron McKeefrey spoke, Ben Kramer spoke, who's our sports science, head of sports science, and then Allie also spoke with nutrition. And we laid out what we do before practice and the little tweaks now that we're in the season, what that looks like. Afterwards, we talked about the last 48 hours leading up to a game and the details that we need them to really be on top of, especially nutrition and hydration wise. All those things, I think they've been going on year long. So our players understand exactly, for example, how many carbs they need to be taking, whether they're a receiver or a quarterback. That's a different number. And Allie does an amazing job of being detailed, and she's up there educating them while they're eating in the training table every single day. And I think that's different from what it's been for them. It's been a learning curve that started way back in January. And at the time, I think they thought maybe it was a little over the top. And now that they're seeing the difference that it makes, they're really understanding. And, any injuries that could have prevented those ways, I think they've seen that it's been really helpful.
You've worked with Coach Grubb for a long time. With him up in the booth, you on the sidelines with the play calling. How involved do you get in it? Do you override them? Do you actually make any of the calls, or what's your role?
Yeah, I just know that when a play caller's in a rhythm, you have to stay out of his way. And when we do most of our talking is in the downtime. Once a series starts, unless if there's a penalty that takes some length of time or instant replay, or a timeout, obviously, when that rhythm's happening, there's got to be 100% focus on him, unless he's asking for a certain situation. I'm giving him, what my feelings are about possibly going for it on fourth down, and I'm trying to do that early, and second, and for sure by third down. And as we move in different parts of the field, and as those situations happen, there's a little bit of dialogue. We're very efficient just because we've been together, I think, in that communication. But in between series, I'll give him some time to talk to the staff, kind of process my thoughts, and I'm making notes during the series while we're on offense as well. And really just, I'm back with the defense for a little bit, watching them out on the field. And when I know he's ready, I'll flip over and, ask him what he's thinking, and then add my comments and my thoughts. You just, when you've done it together for so long, and he makes it his. He makes it his. He's not the exact same play caller, but it falls in lines with what we know is a recipe for winning football games. But I think you got to be really careful. You can't be having, even if it's me, you can't be having a lot of voices. And I definitely don't want to influence something when he's got a set path he's going for the next play or two, and what that sequence looks like. And every drive is its own drive. So I think it's me understanding what I know is important for that tempo, that rhythm of a play caller to have, and letting him do that.
Kalen, you were hired on November 29th, I think it was. Has it felt like a whirlwind to get to this point of a game week, or has it felt like a long time to get to this point?
So I just sent a text off to someone here this morning, and that text was, man, it seems like it's. I'm trying to remember how I worded it. It's gone really fast, but when you think about how much you've done in that time, it's been a little bit of a grind too. And that's just goes along with our philosophy. If you just take care of everything you can today, and then you do the same thing tomorrow, and then the next day, it's amazing when you just pile up those days, how far you can come from December 1st until, the end of workouts before spring ball. And then you put, 30 days or so of spring ball together and just grind every single day, whether it be the coaching staff, what you're doing recruiting wise, the players and their strength and conditioning, the players, and then them understanding our schemes. But it's great. It feels different. I could hear the band outside my office getting ready, and that felt like a game atmosphere right there this morning. And so we're excited, but there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and I'm excited to see our guys, reap the rewards of it.
It's been obvious from the start that Chris Peterson's a fan of yours. He's vouched for you. He was at your press conference when you were hired. How much do you guys still talk, and how much have you had a chance to even pick the brains of other Husky head coaches that have been here throughout the years?
It's funny you ask, because that text message I'm talking was to Chris. And so, excuse me. He's been amazing. He's, first of all, I mean, I said it from the beginning, you'd be foolish not to take the insight and, any information he has to share and learn from it. But he loves this program. He loves, obviously the players that he knows still that are in it, that he recruited, which there's still a high number of those. And so he is a great source. And I just know over the different places I've been, a Pat Hill and a Jeff Tedford when I was at Fresno the last couple of years. I mean, those guys, Pat in particular was around practice daily, and I mean, Chris has just been a great source, bouncing things off of, and there was text messages going back and forth even this morning. So he's always welcome around here. He knows that, and I appreciate him to a very, very high level.
How much do you see Roger Rosengarten grow in camp? Because it sounds like there was a moment in which, at least with Scott Morrell, Coach Grubb, they kind of just clicked where he kind of got more fine-tuned in camp. How much have you seen him grow in camp?
Yeah, I think he's just continued to stay the course, I heard athleticism from Coach Grubb, I think he's a smart player. He's got a mindset you like from an offensive line standpoint where, he's going to get after you. He's a finisher. He's got a little bit of that, bulliness to him when he's playing in between the lines. He's the nicest guy and funniest guy off the field, but man, he loves the game. So I think he just stayed the course. I think he kept getting better. We see what his potential still is, and he's doing a nice job. Just consistent every day.
Kalen, you mentioned there looks like you guys go back. You and Coach Lewis go back to your days. I think even a decade ago, like Southern Illinois days. Do you have any recollections of those battles between Southern Illinois, Eastern Illinois, and also just your thoughts on him as a coach?
Yeah, I told the defensive staff's been hearing about it since this summer, and I told the team this the other day. I said, I've seen this offensive system 3 times in person, in 2012 and 13, when Coach Lewis was at Eastern Illinois. And then also the coordinator was at San Jose in 2017. And for sure, the 2 games back when Jimmy Garoppolo was running the show for them, it's the fastest offense I've ever seen in person. Now, the rules have changed a little bit, and so I think that's part of where it's slowed down. But just the systematic things and some of the unique things they do, spreading you from sideline to sideline, and you always think throw, and you guys are well in tune to, it's a running strength that they have in their offense, and they have a quarterback that he's new as a starter, but he's been in the program for multiple years. This is not new as far as, what he's trying to figure out, and his legs and the ability to extend is certainly something we got to be ready for, and if you're not assignment sound, as Coach Morrell said, he's going to be taking off on you. So the stopping the run game is certainly a big piece of that, getting lined up, but that tempo, and Coach Lewis has done an awesome job. He's in his 5th year, and there's a few different guys on the staff there that I've had many acquaintances. In fact, the old line coach I worked with for 1 year at Southern Illinois, Coach O'Boyle. So different guys, I've followed them. Even that system when I was at Eastern Michigan, we never played them, but followed them. They were on the other half of the conference, followed their offense, and it was always something you were taking note because they were putting up big numbers. So it's a unique, and it's about them running as many plays as they can, as fast as they can.
Coach Morrell also said that he feels like you guys are well prepared for it because of what you guys are trying to do offensively as well. Can you talk about some of the things that you've maybe tried to do to simulate that or to?
Well, I think for us offensively is what we do is we change the tempo, and what you have to get ready, what you have to be prepared for defensively is the fastest tempo, right? And so when our offense is playing and changing the tempos and gearing into that fast tempo, they got to be ready, and they have to assume and expect it every single play as a defense. So I think from a Kent State standpoint, it's probably more of that fast tempo than what we probably show every day in practice. But there's still enough of those plays throughout the course of a day or a week where our defense has had a lot of reps lining up quickly, getting the calls, and executing.
When you mentioned that tempo, this was a team last year that I think struggled in terms of wearing down physically at times down the stretch, and you guys have addressed that with strength and conditioning, with nutrition, 100 different ways. How confident are you in just this team's ability to physically last in second halves and against tempo teams that do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think, that's, I guess we'll find out, I'd like to think I know that we're in a better position. This team will test us that way for sure. Defensively, we'll rotate and, do that, especially up front. You guys are understanding kind of the depth, whether it be at edge or interior, and some of the linebackers, and we have to have that depth because they need to stay fresh for the entire game. And offensively, I think that's where you see it, where, you got more of the same guys on the football field, and that just that ability to have that stamina to last for 4 quarters. I do feel like, I've mentioned how, we're leaner but stronger and more powerful. And so I think all of those things are correlated to, the conditioning and the work we've put in over the off season. And I feel really good. And I know our guys feel good about where their bodies are at and what they're going to be capable of doing and how long they'll be able to do it.
Coach, you're obviously part of a new coaching regime here, about to play in front of a fan base that's curious to see what they got, a fan base that watched the opener not go so well last year. Beyond winning the game, beyond executing your plays, how much do you just want to make a good first impression in front of this fan base? Yeah,
honestly, the number one thing is just find a way to win. That is the most important thing. Just find a way. Going into a first game, it isn't just because I'm here. I think that's the way I felt wherever I've been, and I'm always real with our guys, and they've seen that. I'm not going to tell them the other team's awful if they're awful, or the team's really good if they're not. I'm going to be real up front, but we just got to find a way to win and be ready to adjust, and that comes by just focusing on and executing one play at a time, and you do that. I think we're always going to respect the way we kind of put it is we're going to respect our opponent and everything they have, but we're going to believe that we have it what it takes, and respect all, fear none. I hear that a lot, and that's really, I think, the way we look at it.
What does success for you look like in year one?
I don't know if I'm ready to gauge that as far as like a wins or losses. What I want to just see is the continuation of what we're doing right now. The growth, the belief, we know, there's going to be adversity. So what's that response look like to adversity, whether it's in the course of a game or after a game, in between weeks? The guys know that, I've put it this way, the national champions at every level of football or other sports, there's adversity that those teams face throughout the course of the year and in a game. The key is that you make that adversity and that time that you're going through it temporary. And you do that by just having a mindset of getting it back on your side as quick as you can, or working through it and sticking together if it's something that's a little more, little tougher to work through. So some of it, most of the adversity we can control our response, and some of it, is just not the response itself, but some of the things that we can't control, whether it be an injury or something like that. So I don't want to gauge that. I think you got to catch some breaks along the way by staying healthy and so forth. But, I just want to see a continuation of what we're doing, because I really like the direction we've been headed. And, it's time to play a game to see where we're at too, so we can keep taking those steps and be able to address the areas where maybe there are some, the weaknesses.
Okay, do you know the best week quarterback? Sounds like a big week for the scout team, huh?
Yeah, Sermon, Camden is running the scout team because he can run around a little bit and he can throw it, so he's doing a really good job. Scout teams have been awesome.
Did you know any backstory on how this game was scheduled? Did Peterson put it into place?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
You named 3 transfers like just from the spring, team captains for the fall. What have those guys shown from a leadership standpoint that helped them earn that title?
Yeah, I really got to credit our team. They 100% voted. Coaches didn't even have any votes. The players voted. Normally I would try to keep it at 4 captains, but there were certainly 6 guys, and these 6 guys were the ones that were clearly above the rest of the team. And I give our team credit because, as you mentioned, there's, or I know that's been seen, is that there's some guys that haven't been around, longer than a couple months in Wayne's case, and 8 or 9 months in some of the other guys. So I give them credit because they see the leadership abilities that these guys have. They see and have welcomed them in with open arms, to where there wasn't this long, oh, you got to do this before you're really a Husky, and I credit our team, and try to facilitate that environment. But that's an environment, and that's something that the brotherhood, we call it, that exists already. I think it's really cool. You got 5 guys that are in there last year for sure, and they've been through it, and some of them are 6-year guys, AC, Jackson, and then you got guys like Wayne who've been team captains, and Cam Bright who have been team captains, and understand what that looks like. And I don't think that had anything to do as far as our team knowing that they were team captains. They just really respect what those guys bring to the table, and they've not been afraid to stand up, whether it be in their offense, defensive meetings or special teams meetings, or as a team. They've been getting in front of the team and saying what they need to say. Michael's the same way. So Jeremiah Martin has done that since the spring consistently, and I thought the team did an awesome job of picking these six young men to lead us.
Speaking of those guys, Caleb, especially with Jackson, knowing his situation for this week, what have you seen out of him?
Yeah, I think it was hard in the spring when he was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen, but he still just has this, this confident swagger about him, and then it's just so important, and the players know that, and so he's just continued to, only take even bigger steps in his leadership since what was that, in May, I think, or was it June when we made the announcement? It was May, I think, as far as him being able to come back. So he just bleeds purple. He's so strong, and all his work that he puts in, he knows it, the players know it, and makes it easy for him to lead and ask things of others and hold them accountable to what they're doing when he already does that on his own.
You guys had brought him along gradually back from the injury. Is he good to go for week 2?
Yeah, we're working still. Just every day, we're just trying to get him ready for week 2, knowing what we had going into week 1 here. We just, don't want to push it too much. And so, that's the expectation, is that he'd be able to get out there week 2 in some capacity there and help us out.
You had Lawyer Malloy in recently. Can you share any of that with us, and anybody planned this week?
Yeah, he's, we probably won't bring too many others in during the week. There might be some times, on a Friday night or something at the right time. This first week being a first game for us as a new staff with, it coming on, we probably won't bring any guest speakers in for Friday night, but not afraid to do that. And, Lawyer is just one of those guys. He was open to us in the early months when we first got here and came on campus and did some videos for us. We really appreciate all he's done, and there's a heartbeat to him that's different, and our guys know it, and I know it, and when he comes and speaks to the team, they just feel the passion he has, and also just the way he did it and how long he was able to do it in the NFL. There's a lot of things that we can learn, and we want to make everything about growth moments while we're learning the history of this program, and really acknowledging and how some of these great players that went through this program did it, and who they are.
Speaking of that, the ad that you put out, was that something, did you do that also at Fresno?
We did not. I mean, it's a whole different set of circumstances. We had about 3 weeks to get ready for a game there, so it was mostly focused on, that was COVID, 2020. So a little different set of circumstances. You have more time to work through some things and think through it.
And Kalen, Ryan was saying earlier that the mechanics day-to-day of the job don't really change as you move up the ladder, Division 3, Division 2, and it doesn't really matter. Now that you're about to start your Power 5 career, has anything changed in the way you approach a season?
No, I mean, I think there's more people to make sure that are just on the same page. That's really what it is. It's a bigger group, and if you put your pillars and you make those people that you just know you can count on day to day, whether it's your strength conditioning coach or like a Ron McKeefrey or Courtney Morgan, your coordinators. I mean, and everyone has such a huge role, but once you set those roles, and they just what I think is so important is to turn it over to them and every coach and just let them own it, let them be who they are, and when they own it, it's amazing how it can grow exponentially better than what it was if you just micromanaged it every single day. And so yeah, I don't know. I think the recruiting, obviously is much more intense, on all levels, whether it's the contacts or, the communication, or just the plan and the bigger plan itself and more details. There's a lot more to it.
Kalen, I know Ryan was talking about being up in the booth and how he wants kind of more of that environment away from the energy and the heat of the moment. Yeah. How do you kind of like to divvy up your coaches in terms of who you'd like to have up there as opposed to the energy that you want out on the field? Yeah, no,
I let the coordinators really lay out what they would like to have, and there's some enough continuity where we've had even GAs with coaches at different places, QCs at different places, and so they have some restrictions that they have as far as being on headsets and stuff, but I let the coordinators pretty much tell me what their wish list is, and then it's all got to fit into special teams too, and our special teams coordinator, being Eric Schmidt, keep him on the field, and most of the defensive staff, or all the defensive staff from a full-time standpoint, will be on the field, because their roles are also important, and they're involved in other things, not just the defense itself, but different special teams roles.
So who will be up in the booth from the defensive?
You'll have your GAs up there, and again, they're not just guys that are first years off of off the field. These are guys that have been around football for a while and understand what we're doing on a high level.
Anything else for Coach?
Appreciate you guys.
All right, thanks everybody. Thank you, Coach.